Welcome back to Fixity Fix. Today we are taking a break from maintaining cars and doing a little maintenance on the lift. You might have seen in one of our earlier videos that we installed an overhead hose extension between the MaxJax lift posts so we didn't have to fuss with the hose on the floor going under the car every time we were working on something. Today we're bleeding the hydraulic system in the MaxJax lift. That has required us to drop the hose that we had going overhead. It's important that every element of the hydraulic system be lower than the top of the bleed screw once we raise it to the lift's maximum extension. So bleeding the hydraulic system removes any air from the hoses or the hydraulic rams so that the lift will come up evenly on both sides and will be reliable when we're lifting a car up and down, which is pretty important for safety reasons. The trick to bleeding this system is to run the lift all the way down to the ground, check and make sure the hydraulic fluid is at the appropriate level. That's just done right here with a little dipstick. That is right there between the lines, nearer to the top line, right where I like it. And so now we're going to run the lift up all the way to the top and then use the bleed screws on the top to get out any extra air. So now I'll run the lift up to the top. It doesn't do us any good to bleed the lift when it's on the ground. It really only works if the lift is all the way up in the air. Little button right here. The ram jacks are up at their highest extension and they're not resting on the jack stops here. So this is hydraulic pressure holding up the lift. You don't want to do this with a car on the lift by any means. You want to do this with the lift empty. Here I've got a 5mm long-handled Allen wrench and a rag to soak up the extra hydraulic fluid. Is that the bleed screws, how about that air? That's exactly what we want to see. We want to see air come out, especially from the far one. All right, and that's just fluid coming out now. So that's a successful bleed for this first time. Again, we'll run through this up-down cycle a few times just to make sure we get all of the air out. Go ahead and tighten this a little better than I did before. Now we're going to go around and bleed the other side. Same process over here on this side. I'm going to try to get this to unlatch with one hand so I can video it. There's no air on the near side, which is fairly normal when I bleed this. I only really bleed it if the sides get out of sync. They were getting a little bit out of sync. I had this nasty Tesla, which is the donor car for the Porsche, up on the lift for a pretty long time. It was the first job after putting the overhead hose in. We were probably knocking loose a little bit of air as we were going up and down with this thing. So it's time for a bleed. We'll do another cycle. Let's speed up the camera a bit. Give this another shot here. And that's just clean, clear fluid. Here's a pro tip. You can see the red fluid. I'm using transmission fluid in this lift, which is one of the recommended fluids. I used it because I was lazy. It's what I had around in the shop. A lot more expensive than just hydraulic fluid. I've been sort of regretting that I didn't just use hydraulic fluid just because the transmission fluid has a strong smell. You probably know that. To me, it smells like cat pee, which is really helpful in diagnosing a car. If it smells like cat pee, it's probably a transmission issue or a transmission fluid leak. And if it smells like pancake syrup, it's probably coolant, for example. It's not a big deal. It's not annoying enough to change it out. But if I were to do it all over again, I would use just simple hydraulic fluid. Cheaper and less stinky. I don't think we're going to see any air on this right-hand side. But let's check. Nope, that's all good too. All right, we won't need to do this again unless the lift starts getting uneven. The manual says if it's out of level by 3 or so inches, it's time to check level on the posts and do a bleed. It was right at that point. I would have done it anyway. I've bled this thing before when it's been more than an inch or two out of kilter. I don't really want to mess around with getting anything wrong on something that's suspending a several ton vehicle over any of our heads here. We're going to bring this lift back down to the ground. We're going to reinstall the overhead hose. Check out our other video for how to put together, fabricate, and install an extension hose to do the overhead mod that we've done. Thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Maybe give this video a like if you found it helpful, and we will see you next time on Fixity Fix.